Hey everybody, it's Juneteenth Book Festival and you are watching Queer and Black on and off the page. I'm Leah Johnson, I'll be moderating this panel and we have so many incredible writers here today. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. And so let's go in backwards alphabetical order. Julian.
Oh, wow. Oh, can I tell you what I was saying?
It was like, no, not me first.
No, wait. I had to think backward. I was like, backwards. Okay, maybe it's from the camera view, but no, it's last name. No. Yes, I am.
Wait, I think that would be me, wouldn't it?
Yes, it is, Ashley. Look, I graduated high school, but don't ask for the certificate or anything.
Nobody said Leah Johnson knew how to read, okay? So
Wow.
Leah Johnson writes. Leah Johnson does not read.
That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
Okay, here we go. My name is Ashley Woodfolk. I have written several books. The first one was called The Beauty That Remains. It came out in 2018. It is about grief and music. The second one is called When You Were Everything. It just came out this March, and it is about a friendship breakup. And then I have two books coming out in the fall, part of a series called Fly Girls. This is the first one. It's called Lux, the New Girl. The second one is called Micah, the Good Girl, and it is about a group of friends who go to an arts school in Harlem, and how they just are living their best lives in New York, but also having a lot of drama. Now it's you, Julia.
now.
All right, I am Julian Winters, young adult author. My first book, Running with Lions, came out in 2018, about a diverse, inclusive underdog soccer team who the main character, Sebastian, is just trying to make sure that they survive their senior year of high school. But in order to do that, he has to kind of get along with his ex-childhood best friend, Amir. A lot of, banter and kissing in the rain happens in that one. And then my second book, How to Be Remy Cameron, came out in 2019, about a gay, Black, adopted queer boy named Remy Cameron, who is trying to figure out who he is in order to write an essay for his AP Lit class. But in order to do that, he has to examine all the labels that everyone else puts on him and how he feels about them, how they take away from who he is, and also how they empower him. And then my third book comes out September 8th, 2020, The Summer of Everything, about a comic book geek named Wes Hudson who only has two plans for his summer. That's to kick back at his local independent bookstore once upon a page and to finally tell his best friend Nico that he's madly in love with him. But everything goes whack when he finds out the coffee shop is buying the Once Upon a Page property, and he has to spend his whole summer trying to save his bookstore with his slacker friends who work there.
Oh my God, my son's name is Nico.
Listen, good names, they just come to me, I'm telling you.
Thank you, Julian. Okay, so Roya, you're next. This much I know.
Yep, alphabetically. My name is Roya Marsh. I am a Black butch writer from the Bronx, New York, and I hope you are gazing at the way the sunlight is.
Hey,
you are glowing.
Okay.
It's true.
Yes.
I am the poet, author of Daylight, which is my debut collection of poems that dropped in March, just in time for National Poetry Month. This has been referred to as a coming of age story, but I don't think I've come of age yet, because here I am still living this very true Black queer tale. But the poems themselves are based and rooted in Black butch visibility and the persistence and resilience of the Black femme body in these here United States of America.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Claire.
So, my name is Claire. I'm the author of Let's Talk About Love, which is about a asexual college student who has given up on romance. And then she meets someone where she works at the library and she really likes him a lot and kind of goes from there. And I'm also
a very cute Asian boy, and my husband's Asian, and I love you, but sorry.
And that, yes.
Ashley's mic.
I'm just going to be fangirling this entire time. I just hope everybody's ready.
And I'm also the author of If It Makes You Happy, which is about a girl named Winnie who's living her best fat girl life during one summer, and she's crowned the queen of her small town during their annual festival. And it's just about her dealing with her family and what it means to be fat in a Black family when they don't really want you to be. So.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm last. Okay, right. I thought you were gonna say my name. Okay.
No, well, I felt like it was just so. I didn't want to,
It's cool. So my name's Candice Iloh. I am a writer, dancer, poet, and also a performer. And I'm the author of Everybody Looking, which is a young adult novel in verse that is about a first-generation kid who has never really been away from home, raised in a super religious family, and has never reckoned with her trauma until she goes away to an HBCU. In her freshman year, she thinks she's gonna do all these kind of cool things. She's gonna save people. She's gonna be different states away from home. And meeting all these different people and having all these first time experiences actually trigger all the memories of her trauma and trigger a lot of things that she has to figure out, including who she is. And she does this using dance and meeting a queer on campus. So it is a coming of age story, but it's also a very disjoint, non-linear story about the different ways in which we are still our kid selves.
Thank you so much. I'm Leah Johnson. I'm moderating. I'm a writer, editor, and Midwesterner, currently moonlighting as a New Yorker. I am the author of the young adult novel, You Should See Me in a Crown. It just came out 2 weeks ago. It is
amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a novel about a girl named Liz Leidy, whose main goal is to get out of her small and small-minded Midwestern hometown and go to college, but that plan is derailed when her financial aid falls through and she has to run for prom queen for the scholarship that's attached to the crown. That's tough enough for a wallflower like Liz, but it's made even more difficult when she starts to fall for her competition. My next novel is called Rise to the Sun. It comes out in 2021. And it's about two girls at a music festival and one epic scavenger hunt that changes their lives.
That book's gonna fuck me up. I already know.
Look, for real. A music festival? Curse, right? A music festival? Wow.
Yeah.
I know, right?
You know what? I did that for us. You know, I had to do it.
Drama, hella awesome things.
I'm excited about finishing it. Which, you know.
Look, that's that part.
Right. So this is Queer and Black on and off the page. I opened this panel up to questions from folks from everywhere before we started. And so a couple of these are mine, but most of them come from other folks who just want to hear more about you all's processes. And so we're going to dive straight in. The first question is, we're obviously in incredibly trying times. It's supposed to be Pride, which is like generally like a corporatized like parade of a month. And instead, most of us have been in the streets fighting for our lives. I'm wondering what Black queer texts or writers you all are returning to right now to refill your wells when you feel depleted.
So I already read this already. So I read it last year, but I think about it a lot. And I refer back to it. It is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauda. And that book, I think about it a lot, mainly because of the fact that it came out last year. I think about it a lot, mainly because I never read a story like that when I was a teenager. And I feel like my process of coming out and feeling natural in my skin and feeling very like okay with myself would have been expedited if I had read something like that. And it's full of African spirituality, Caribbean culture. And I'd never seen like a YA novel that really dealt with like these spiritual terms like crystals and having like a granny or an auntie who is like, you know, go into the water and use these herbs and da-da-da. And it was it was just, it's super cool. I was just like, wow, this is a YA novel. Like, this is a YA novel talking about all this juju and all this like love and all this like these two queers who are just super into each other, and there's nothing, you know, there's resistance to it and stuff like that in the book, but there's nothing weird about it. Like, it's very natural. It's like reading any other romance story.
I love that book. You want to talk about something that really like tore me up? That was that for me.
That book was so good. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Y'all can jump in whenever. I don't want to be like, go, and you know, I know sometimes they do that on these panels.
Yeah, I'll say, I feel like a broken record because I always bring this book up, but Odd One Out by Nick Stone, like, I felt like it was the first book where I saw questioning on the page. And as someone who sort of came into their queerness pretty late in life, I definitely had a lot of those questioning moments when I was younger. But like, I always thought, oh, well, I like boys. So I thought that it didn't matter. Like, I thought that sort of erased everything else. And, you know, bi erasure is real. And I think if I had read a book where there was a character who liked both earlier in my life, that would have been a really validating experience for me. So I really, really love that book. I've read it dozens of times, probably because like I read it early, like way before it came out. And then I read it again when it came out, and then I've read it several times since. Yeah, so I really, really love that book. And of course, like, Alice Walker is just someone that I return to again and again. Like, it's kind of impossible not to. So yeah, those are mine.
So Ashley actually stole my answer. I was gonna say Alice Walker too. Because I'm one of those queers that I knew since I was like 5, like, and there wasn't anything anyone could tell me to change my mind. I thought everybody was queer, and then it was a shock to find out I was the one that was different. So I like older texts, so definitely Alice Walker's book.
Thank you.
I'm going to, I was going to say I went out at, you know, it's hard to be on a panel with Ashley because Ashley knows, like, it's almost like she's in my brain sometimes. Just even when she's tweeting, I'm like, what the fuck, yo? Like, how did you know I was thinking that 5 minutes ago? So I was going to say I went out, but what I've really been reading a lot is stuff by Jason Reynolds. Like, I've rereading Ghost and rereading Miles Morales, just because growing up for me, I mean, being queer, even having to go through that alone was hard enough, but just like being Black in the world and being a Black boy in the world was super hard, just because people can't always see my queerness, you know. So I don't hide it, but it's not always, you know, I can be walking on the street in a white t-shirt and some sweatpants, the first thing people see is that he's Black. And so for me, reading things like Miles Morales just reminds me that, yeah, I'm Black and I'm powerful and I can be a superhero, and I need that stuff to kind of elevate the fact that, oh yeah, I can exist out in the world, and you see me as Black, and then you find out that I'm fucking queer, and like, I got all the bonus features. I got it all going for me and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am the upgrade that you need in your life, you know? And so I need books like that where it just feels empowered and feels good to be in my skin, because that's the first thing people do see for me is my skin. And then first they attack that, and then they attack all the other, you know, facets of who I am. And so, yeah, just reading Jason Reynolds' Ghost and Miles Morales has just been so empowering for me to remember that, yeah, I'm pretty like, I'm a freaking superhero, and I need to live in that moment, and then, you know, everybody else can, you know, see like my secret identity and, you know, how cool I am as a queer person, you
know. Perfect. Thank you so much.
I've been somewhat conflicted. I'm definitely privileged enough to still be working during this time, but I teach, and so like I teach young people, young Black and brown people, and they have so many questions. I have a public Instagram, so like they see the level of activism that I've committed to on my own. And then they're very curious about why I don't like corral them to come out in the street. And so at the same time, I'm sort of like giving them different material to read, to like not suppress those desires, but definitely to inform them so that if they do make that decision, they're making it of their own accord and not of anything that I've told them to do. And with that, I think I've also been revisiting a lot of essays. I'm working on things on my own right now. And so what just sits on me when that question is posed is Audre Lorde's essay, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. And I think it's a multifaceted spell that I'm bound by when I read it and when I consider this person challenging white feminism in 1980s, right? And in 2020, there are still people who think, oh no, like this is great, this is good, that's my sister, you know? And then we're out there, and I'm speaking from a personal experience at a protest where white people will push you. They will literally throw you out of the way, and with no regard, no excuse me, or any of those things, right? And then if I respond, you know, in a way, I'm jeopardizing everything that I stand for. And it's also divisive for me to be taking away from the actual thing that brought us here, right? But I'm also just constantly considering that level of audacity, right? To exist, to write, to go against the grain at all times and still stand for what you believe in. So yeah, that's something that I'm returning to in this time.
That's fantastic on its own, but it's also such a great segue into something else I was thinking about, and that's how are you all thinking about how your work relates to the present moment? Does it feel more resonant to you right now, more urgent? Are you writing anything at all? If you ask my editor, I'm not, so I don't know.
I could jump in. I am writing. I'm finding it difficult to write the things that I'm quote unquote supposed to be writing because I feel like I have these other projects that feel more important. Like something I'm working on right now is a novel in verse about two Black girls in love. And like, I just feel like, and I mean, they don't have the best relationship, right? There's some toxicity there, but I think that the writing of it is really important because ultimately it's a story that humanizes us in a way that I think is vitally important for everything that's happening in the world right now. Like every major human atrocity was committed because someone told a lie about someone else that dehumanized them, and everybody accepted it as the truth, right? Enslavement, the Holocaust, like, you know, ethnic cleansing, like literally every human atrocity comes from a lie being taken as the truth and a dehumanizing lie being taken as the truth. And so I think at a time like this, it's more important than ever that we tell stories that humanize Black and brown bodies and Black and brown people. And the fact that most of us write for children, I think is even more important because it's like this massive responsibility, but it's also like such a privilege to be able to tell stories that kids are gonna read, take in, sort of like empathize in a way that they may have never empathized with someone who doesn't look like them. And then, you know, go forward and grow up and become an adult and sort of hold, hopefully, if we do our jobs right and they are open enough to receive it, hopefully like hold that inside of them. And then when they see these atrocities happening, they stand up and say like, no, like this is unacceptable. So to answer your question, it is difficult to write right now for sure. But I think at the same time, it feels really, really important to continue to tell the kinds of stories that we are
telling. So I am struggling to write like hardcore. And similar to what Ashley said is that I have things that I'm supposed to be working on, and then there are things that are just coming naturally that are not the things that my editor is waiting on. So I've like worked on a long form essay. I've worked on like a picture book. And I've worked on a few other smaller things, but it's difficult, I think, right now to form long form thoughts, AKA a whole ass novel. But I think right now I am reflecting a lot on the fact that, you know, the novel that I have coming out is a lot about being seen and being heard for who you actually are and what you actually want to present to the world. And I think I've been having a hard time with that because we're in a pandemic where we have to quarantine and we have to social distance. And I don't know about like other people, but it's caused me to see a whole nother side of myself that I have to deal with. And a part of my writing process is dealing with myself and then writing about it. And so it's like a lot of work at the same time, right? So like I had a friend the other day who said, you know, other people who are not necessarily artists, they go to a place or they log on the computer and they press a button. They know their tasks, they know the things that are expected of them, they have their meetings, yada yada. But us as artists and as writers, we don't just get to press the button. We have to create the whole ass button first. We have to create the function behind the button and what the reaction to the button is supposed to be and the arc of the button. And it's just, I find that I'm able to reflect on the work that I've done already and to create things that are like spawns of that work. But it's been difficult, I think, to create, like to work on the things that I had planned before all of this and to continue the same way. Like I can't look at the outlines and the synopses and the things that I plan to write in the same way because the things that are happening right now, they're not new, but they're so huge that there's no way that I can work on anything that isn't deeply like impacted by what's happening right now. Like our world is completely different. Like how we live is completely different, and there is so much unrest. It's like a lot of us writers are empaths, and a lot of our stuff is driven by how we feel, and how we feel changes every 5 minutes or every hour or every day. I don't know what's happening to you all, but like I'm all kinds of people and all kinds of things week to week. And I think it's a new challenge for writers to focus on things when things are changing so drastically, so often. And yeah, like you're supposed to hold on to that thing. You're supposed to make it be something that makes sense to somebody at the end. Yeah, I don't know. I think I got distracted by the fact that I can't see Leah anymore. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, I know.
Yeah, I resonate with that deeply. I've been like exhausted, and not the exhausted being Black exhausted, but like fatigued at what we have to exist with and the institutions and systems of oppression that we, for the most part, have had to navigate through, including publishing, right? And at this point, I've kind of been writing with my young people. I guess whenever I give them a prompt and they have that 25-minute writing time, I'll like try to jot notes down, but I've also just been very tender with myself and allowing myself the leeway to let a deadline lapse because what else is there, I think, at this point right now, like beside imminent death, that is gonna like force me to actually create these things that someone is saying I'm supposed to create, as opposed to being gentle enough with myself to allow myself to create what I can. And so, you know, I've written pieces that people have, you know, cried over if I shared them on some virtual event that I've been doing. But at the same time, I'm always like, I don't even want to say like doubting myself, but considering like, would they have cried 3 months ago? You know, are they crying now because of it's the sign of the times, you know? And so I also am looking at what I'm creating with that critical lens, but trying to allow myself the leeway to just be Black and alive at the time.
That's so real. Would they have cried 3 months ago? Like,
would they have cared about any of these books 3 months ago? Would any of these lists have existed 3 months ago? That's definitely an ongoing question. I don't know if Julian and Claire answered while I was like off the grid.
No,
but...
no, we did. We did.
Okay.
I'm very, so I don't want to call myself lucky or fortunate, but I am going to say I'm very lucky that I've been doing nothing but revising. So I haven't had to really start something from scratch, but I'm going to be honest with you. I turned in my revision like last week, and I have been like physically unable to sit down at the laptop and use it for like a writing purpose. I can answer emails, I can hop on Zooms, I can, I can do all of that stuff. But when it comes to thinking about clicking on Word again and opening up to a blank page and starting to write, I am terrified right now. Even though I have all these ideas in my head, because it's like everyone's been saying, the world is so different. And it didn't even happen like in like a slow change that, you can progressively, okay, get used to. It even happened like with Corona, where I was like, okay, these are the steps that we're following now. Okay, these are things we're doing. Like it punched me in the mouth. And I'm just like, I'm still in the hospital trying to recover. So I haven't been able to write anything fresh. But I will say the way this has affected me while I was revising was it really did make me go back and question some of the things I wrote and say, am I showing you enough of what it's really like, for us to exist right now? Or for us to exist period. I remember I was revising a scene, it's the main character and a possible love interest walking down like side streets at night talking, and I was like, yeah, but you have to like give them the reality of the things that they face, even just doing something like this, being two queer people walking down the street together, being two queer people of color walking down the street together at night, in any situation. So yeah, I've had to rethink a lot of things, but also I was able to think about, but what am I giving that queer Black reader with this? And there's this section where it's all about the main character going to his first Pride. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give you that joy. I'm going to give you that hope. I'm going to give you whatever it is you need in that moment to remember that you are something amazing. And despite what's going on around you, don't let it take away from how amazing you are. So I love that we're having this Juneteenth book fest, because there's so many amazing people talking about amazing stories and amazing experiences. And I was like, I can't let all of my emotions and all my doom and gloom and all of my like, I know what it's going to be like 6 months from now. It looks real nice and fancy right now. We're putting on, our best clothes, going out and saying, oh yes, I support Black voices and I do all this. I know what it's going to be like 6 months from now. But 6 months from now, I want to remember that I wasn't writing it for y'all in the first place. I was writing it for these readers right here who cannot see it in everyday life and their experiences. They may get it once every quarter or once a year. I want to make sure they get it all the time, So if you happen to pick it up and enjoy it and buy it, wonderful. Love it. Here's a like on Instagram. But I'm writing it for these people. So they need to have the reality as much as they need to have the reality of how harsh it can be, just as they need the reality of how joyful it can be. And so yeah, I think that's something I was able to bring into my writing that I don't think would have crossed my mind about amping up that joy had any of this not had happened, or had it not been as amplified in everywhere that I go. I have to see Black bodies in the street no longer living,
Can I piggyback off of that real quick?
Yeah.
I knew in the beginning of all of this shit that was going on that I needed to read fantasy, because I needed to be reminded as a Black person that it is the goal. It is white supremacy's goal for me to be walking around 24/7 thinking about my own death. And I absolutely was just like, okay, this is an opportunity. Like, you know, everything's exploding. This is my opportunity to write something else or to think about something else, because as far as I'm concerned, we're never going to go back to the way that the world was before. I believe in community and I believe in the people. And I feel like there's no way we're going to allow it to just go back to the way it was. And so I haven't necessarily been able to write and actualize this all on a page, but I'm thinking a lot about, like, if we are writers, we can create something else on a page that we really want the young people and the other queers to read and to use as fuel for the kind of future that they want to have. And I think that I'm really just, for me, it's like later for the days of, because I'm a Black person, I need to just keep reintroducing the world to the pain that we experience. And I need to keep reminding everybody, because I'm Black and because I'm queer, I need to constantly like center that trauma in the stories that I'm creating. I think it should be in the context of what I'm creating, and that it should, you know, like, I'm not gonna act like it doesn't exist, but I also, as a person who writes fiction, I want to visualize the world that I want, right? So like, while we're protesting and while we're tearing all this shit down, I'm like, what are we making? And like, you know, if we do have the opportunity to have a different kind of world, what does that look like? Like, what kind of power do young people have? What kind of power do Black people have? And like, I'm interested in writing characters who are self-actualized young people who are deep inside of their Blackness, deep inside of their queerness, and are like, I don't know what y'all were doing back then, but we're not doing that anymore. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate. Your little systems that you've been, you know, carrying for all these years, like, I learned my history and you guys did it wrong, and this is what I want to do instead. And so I think that's also what's making it hard for me to create, and a lot of us to create, because we're like, oh, we got to do something different. We've never seen that before. How do we make something we've never seen before?
Yeah, that's great. It's Claire, I just have to say this real quick. I'm gonna toss it right to you. The other day I saw somebody tweeting about Black fantasy writing, and they were saying the job, like most of us, what we're doing on the page is imagining possible futures, and it's literally, we're building a plane as we're flying the plane. And so I think about that all the time. That just especially resonated with what you just said, Candice. Claire, take it away.
Yeah, so right now, I'm a contemporary writer, and I decided a long time ago I was going to only exclusively write about Black joy, Black hope, Black love. I wasn't going to do anything that would make a Black reader cry, unless it just kind of hit them on an emotional level and it was personal to them, but I don't write about Black pain at all. And with my current work, I was actually trying to do what Candice was saying. So it started with the premise of, what if Willy Wonka was a Black 20-year-old? What would her empire look like? How queer would she be? How would she express herself? And the entire story stemmed from creating a world in which she was allowed and had the financial resources to create this app that just basically dominated the entire landscape. And everything all the problems that came with that had nothing to do with the fact that she was Black. It was just capitalism. So I'm dealing with capitalism when I'm very pro-socialism at the moment, you know, defund the police and do all that good stuff. But that's something I'm deciding if I can actually add that to my edits, because I'm a lot like Julian, where I don't have to write anything new. I am just strictly revising, and it's due in 2 weeks, and I'm just sweating every day that I could get this done because everything is really stressful, but I'm gonna do it. And I hope in the future we have more books that can be contemporary and just exist the way we want them to exist on our terms, and still get them published with proper marketing plans and in readers' hands and in libraries, you know, face out in bookstores. So that's my hope.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm feeling really fed right now by this. And I want to come back to the conversation of where we move from here, from this moment, especially within the context of traditional publishing in a second. So I'm glad you brought that up there. But I want to ask a craft question that builds on what you all were just talking about. And that's, we have a lot of different writers in here. We got prose writers, poets writing prose writers writing poetry. Like we're doing all of it. And I'm wondering about the way you all's Blackness and your queerness informs the way you approach your work, from book to book, from project to project. Does it change? What does that look like for you all?
Okay. So I have an absurd level of confidence.
Yes,
I have no shame. And so I feel like when I write, I give my characters that same level of confidence. They have no shame about who they are and who they love and what they look like. And it just kind of goes from there.
I love that.
I'm actually on a journey of like writing myself, or not writing myself out, but allowing myself not to be the hero in things that I create. And I think that that's something that I'm trying to do in the world as well, recognizing that the onus is not on me, a Black queer woman, to like save everyone. And it's hard to unlearn that, but I'm definitely like working through that. But when I like, even if I'm just on my cell phone, like typing a note in my notepad, like it always starts out with, so the Black, like, cause it's just me. It's literally my initial thought. It's how I've been conditioned. Like I don't, even if it was like I watch movies or cartoons, animated things sometimes, and you know, it'll be like a unicorn, but it like stands up straight or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's a Black guy. And people are like, how can you really? And I'm like, no. There's literally no way that is not, right? Or like Uniqua from the Backyardigans. And I'm like,
she's definitely Black.
Like, come on, guys. Like, you know, but there are people in the world who can look at that and be like colorblind or like culture blind or whatever. And I'm like, how did you get there? Where did you learn this thing?
Isn't the penguin named Tyrone too?
This level of ignorance. Or like the moose with locks. Why does the moose have locks? Come on. Like stop trying to they're like, no, you're just always making this a this thing or a that thing, right? But I think like when I'm approaching it, and like I mentioned before, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, years ago, like outside of this time right now where it seems like everything is happening in a vacuum, like it was always that for me. And I was Black before I was anything else. I was Black before I was a woman. I was Black before I was a butch. I was Black before I was my mother's daughter. Like whatever she was gonna have was gonna be Black, right? And so when I am embarking on a new task, that is literally always tethered to whatever I'm creating.
That's interesting, because I would say I'm having like sort of the opposite experience where I was always a little bit afraid of writing who I was or making myself the hero because I was still sort of figuring out my identity in a lot of ways. So, for example, in my first book, the Black girl does have a lot of my characteristics, I would say. Like she likes the same kind of music I like. She has anxiety like me and panic attacks. So in those ways, I sort of wrote myself. But when it comes to my queerness, when I was writing this book, I was still figuring all of that stuff out. And so I wrote a gay white boy because it felt safer to me to sort of express my queerness through this like quote unquote more acceptable person, right? Because being Black and queer, being a Black queer woman comes with a lot more baggage than being a queer white boy or a gay white boy, right? And so it was just easier for me to, and to be honest, a lot of the queer stories that I had read at that point were about white boys. And a lot of the TV shows that I had watched were about white boys, right? And so I just felt like I knew that voice. Like I know how to write a gay white boy. Like I got it. It's easy. Let's go.
I was Simon before Simon Spear was Simon. Okay.
Exactly. Right. So I'm definitely having the opposite experience, right? Where I sort of started by writing this gay white boy, and I'm moving closer in When You Are Everything, there is a queer girl of color. She's not the main character, but she is there on the page. And then in my Fly Girl series, I actually have a Black girl who is questioning her sexuality. And now I'm finally, I got there, working on a novel that is directly related to the queer experiences that I have had in my life, which largely have been kind of toxic, mostly because either we didn't know what was really happening in our dynamic, or because we weren't sort of prepared or okay with, or not allowed in some cases, to like express our queerness in the way that we wanted to, right? So yeah, I'm sort of having the opposite experience where I'm finally working towards making myself the hero of the story. And I think in a lot of ways, that by erasure really worked its way into my psyche in a lot of different ways. And so I thought that for a long time, I thought that my queerness wasn't valid. And I'm only just coming around to believing that, my identity doesn't necessarily have anything to do with my current relationship, or my identity doesn't necessarily have to do with my romantic resume, if you want to call it that. And so yeah, I'm finally sort of writing my actual experience on the page in a way that feels, or I guess I should say, I feel like I have the authority to do it finally. So yeah.
I think for me, all of the stuff that I write is semi-autobiographical, because I feel like I don't fully know anybody else's experience. And so I'm going to write from the different facets of myself. And so the first book, Everybody Looking, is very autobiographical in the sense that a lot of like the roller coasters that Ada, the main character, goes through are me, but at an earlier time. So I think, like, for example, like a lot of us will write out stories, if we're writing for young people, we'll write out these moments of like self-actualization as a Black or a queer person that we didn't really arrive to until our late 20s, early 30s, okay? And like there's just like when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, I really did not know who I was, and I didn't even know the word queer. I was super religious. I was super just like, oh, that's not me. I'm not judging them, but that's not me. And so can't relate at all. You know what I mean? That's not me. And so I think like I'm shifting now. I find it really refreshing to entertain the idea of a character who's the opposite of that, like who knows who they are. They're like being raised by parents who are affirming. They're not, parents who are using their proper pronouns, a group of friends who know who they really are and is supportive of their dreams and their goals, and then community that's supportive of the kind of future that they want to see. And I think that I don't know, I don't know what it's like to write anything that I'm not completely infused into. Like, I feel like I became an artist because I wanted to add myself to the page. I wanted to see myself and I wanted to understand myself. And so in a way, writing was my way of like playing, like just kind of navigating all these things that I am. And I don't know how to talk about anything else better than who I am, what I wish to be. Like I can play with characters that I wish to be and that I can see that I would like to become, but I am not right now. And I think that it's just nearly impossible for me to not center Blackness, queerness, young adult, coming of age, moving into 30s, all that kind of stuff into what I'm writing, because I want what I write to be fueled by emotion And my emotion right now feels all of those things. Like, I'm never not thinking about the fact that I'm a Black queer person ever. Like, when am I not thinking about that? I know, like, I walk into it, there's little moments where I walk into a room where I'm wondering why everybody's staring at me and they're looking at me certain kinds of ways. And I like have a moment where I forget that they're looking at me because I look queer as fuck and I'm Black as fuck. Like I have moments where that happens, but for the most part, when I get up in the morning and I look at myself and I think about my life and I think about what's happening in my neighborhood and how I relate to my family and my friends, there's no way I can write without putting that in my stuff. I don't know. How do you do that?
I don't know either. I was hoping maybe somebody on here was like, you know what, Leah, actually, I don't worry about that at all. But of course not. I'm so glad we're all on the same page.
Well, actually, Leah,
you know what, actually, just want to play devil's advocate here. So I think we could probably all agree that the past couple of weeks, not just in the world, but as far as like a reckoning with race within publishing, have been really interesting. So a lot of the conversations lately have been about the myriad of ways publishing is failing Black writers in particular. But if you like distill that down, Black queer writers even further. And I'm wondering how you all, how you all envision us moving forward from this moment as far as like the actual field of writing is concerned.
Hey, Julian, take that.
Is Julian ready? Because I was about to say a thing.
Candice, what I was waiting for was to signal to you. I was waiting, but I wanted to make sure that you had all your thoughts together. But I was waiting to signal you.
You know,
so what I'm going to do now is signal you.
Oh, okay. So I knew I had just been real long-winded, and so I was trying to be like polite.
Trying to step back, right?
I think there's a difference between being long-winded and saying very important, vital things that we need to hear. So you were definitely not long-winded.
Thank you for affirming me. I mean, where I would like to see us go from here is to just feel a freedom to do whatever it is that we're seeing in our heads. I have been obsessed from the beginning of my writing career with writing the realities. Like, my belief has always been like, even if I'm writing fiction, I don't need to make anything up because the world is crazy enough. Like, the world is real enough. I've seen enough to just put that back on the page. I don't need to make anything up. But I feel like from here, I would just really like us Black people to feel free and confident in accessing our imaginations. I've worked with so many young people over the past 10 years who you ask them to make something up, like a monster or an alien or a different world, and it is the hardest thing for them to even conceptualize because it is rammed into their brains all day, every day, that because I'm Black, I gotta write about this. Because I live in this neighborhood, I gotta write about this. Because I grew up this way, like I don't have the liberty to write about some sci-fi fantasy shit. And I really, myself included, I would like us to somehow through this portal of dystopian whatever we're going through, for us to access the fact that we can literally write about whatever we want. Like, I'm not taking notes from white people, but if you just really observe white people, there is an energy where it's like, I can literally write whatever and it's gonna be amazing. Like, everybody's gonna love it.
It's worth $1 million.
Everyone's gonna believe it. No one's gonna question if it's real. And I feel like I want us that, and that wouldn't really be new for us. Like, if you look at our ancestors and you look at our real lineage, like way back when, like, we know how to access imagination and magic and forethought and all these other things. And I just want us to feel that. Like, I want me to feel that. I want to feel like, hey, I sat down and I wanted to write about this kind of thing in this kind of situation, and I don't have to like figure out like, oh, why do you want to write that? Like, you came from this city and you grew up this way. Why aren't you writing about that? I want to feel freedom. And I don't want to feel freedom in the sense that I don't want us to feel freedom in the stereotypical sense, like, you know, fist up and we have access. I want us to feel power as artists. Like, literally, I'm going to create something on this page because I created it. It's real. And because, you know, because I am who I am, someone's gonna read it and someone's gonna feel it. And it could be that spell that I wish it to be. That's what I want for us from here on out.
I love that. The question was like, where do we go from here? Basically. Yeah. I think that I would love for us to have that freedom that Candice is talking about. Like, that is the dream. But I think because I worked in publishing for so long, I'm like so jaded. And I just really think that these white people don't get it. Like, I feel hopeful in my heart that that this is gonna be the real sea change that it feels like it has the potential to become. But I also feel like there have been so many other moments in history, right, where people sort of rose up and like demanded what they wanted, what was theirs, what they deserved. And people were like with it, you know, for the moment. And then it, you know, and then like once the sort of white guilt dissipated, everybody just went back to business as usual. And so I really do hope that, if nothing else, that Black people from this happening feel like empowered as hell, and like they move forward from this, write about whatever they want, that there are more opportunities you know, offered up and presented to them because of white guilt or whatever, because it's what we deserve, because it's like what we should have been getting this whole time. I hope that those opportunities present themselves. I hope we get paid, right? Like, give us some of that money that you're giving to everybody else. Because, you know, I feel like I sort of started talking about this on Twitter a little bit, but I didn't get super deep into it. But like, there's this problem where like Black mediocrity is not allowed. And, you know, the books by Black authors that get published are above and beyond. They're beautiful, they're bestsellers, they're winning awards, they're, you know, doing all these, and, you know, even when they don't get those sort of like external accolades, 9 times out of 10, if you read a book by a Black person, it's gonna be really, really good. Because they had to like jump through so many hoops and like jump over so many obstacles to get through the door of, you know, super white publishing. All that to say, I think that Black people should be able to write, whatever they want to write. I think they need to be paid more fairly for their work. I think their books need to garner more attention, and not just during, you know, a couple of weeks when several Black people are murdered by the police. Like, this is driving me crazy. And like, I don't know how to say it in a way that is super calm and super diplomatic, but like, the fact that my publisher has been posting about my book so much in the last 2 weeks, as grateful as I am that means that more people will see it, it drives me nuts that people had to die for them to put a picture on Instagram. Like, that is how it feels to me. And it makes me so angry. And so I worry, I really, really worry that, you know, I've seen all these images of like, this is not a moment, this is a movement. And while it feels that way to me, I worry that to the rest of the world, the white world, it is a moment. And they're doing what they need to do to appear woke in the moment because they don't want to get canceled. And And I hope that I'm wrong. I really, 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 in my heart, hope that I'm wrong. But I just worry. I hope that we come out getting what we have always deserved. And I think if nothing else, I hope we come out knowing how much we're worth. Sorry, I'm really angry today.
No, you know what? I felt it. I felt that viscerally, and I was like, "Oh, Ashley's in it today, loving that for us."
It's the hypocrisy of the mediocrity that led to the geology, okay, of the anthology, which burned from the etymology. No, seriously, one thing that you just mentioned,
Hot bars.
that has really been sitting on my chest is Because White Guilt, and I feel like that's like an underlying tone of my career. And Because White Guilt pays my rent, and Because White Guilt is why I'm on Verizon Unlimited, you know. And I think where we are to go from here, my hope is there are more events like this on like bi-weekly, right? Where I'm like just sitting in a room full of beautiful Black complexities, right? Where we're actually talking about the work that we've created and the work that we are going to create in the future. I'm also wildly cognizant of like reaching back into the past and then remaining steadfast on the journey forward, but like holding my ground, like 10 toes down, like some of my students say, right? In this moment right here, right now, where I'm like, I'm a part of it. A lot of, I feel like my peers and educators that I work with are like, oh my gosh, like these young people are the future. And I'm like, he's 17 and he's alive right now. Like, wait a minute, like, you know, with the future. So like, while I'm still here, it's really pressed upon me to like do this work and make sure that whatever I have to offer remains shining as a beacon. And I mean, much to what Candice and Ashley have already offered, like to create worlds, to create people, create new languages so nobody knows what we're saying and we can finally talk about people. Like, you don't even, the amount of things that I want to exist, right? Like the way that we're taking over the comic world, it's all like so beautiful and it's so empowering, and it's literally the thing that I've been waiting for, including this like Black queer panel, right? Like this is it. I've been on queer panels and I've been on Black panels, but there's never been a time where they like, hey, let's merge, let's do a merger, right? And so like this is really, really empowering and affirming for me to be here with you all. And my hope is that this continues, right, for however long it has to.
And I think just building on that, I think my hope would be for people to take away the ability to say no. So I feel like when you get the offer, you get the deal, you feel like publishing is doing you a favor. And so you have to go along with what they're saying. And that's not true. You can speak up and say, no, I don't want to write about Black pain. And no, I don't want to, you know, include a whole new plot line about racism to make it accessible to white people so they can learn a lesson. I came through a small imprint, and I'm very aware I'm the only Black author at my imprint, but I came through with a rom-com, right? And I tried to present someone who's friendly and bubbly and approachable, and I am those things, but I'm also really militant. Like, when they say things and when they step out of line, I tell them immediately, it's not okay for these reasons. This is what I want to do, and if you don't like that, you can propose an alternative, and I'm free to say no. This is my book with my name on it. And for the most part, they've been extremely respectful and extremely respectful and willing to work with me and just really empowering. And I feel like because I have the confidence that I do, I already knew how to say those things. So I'm hoping the young people who are marching, who are finding their voice online, that just continues to carry over once the movement does die down, because the movement is going to die down and things will probably, unfortunately, go back to normal. They keep that sense of pride and ability and take that with them moving forward through the world. And if publishing is their path, then they take that into publishing.
Claire nailed it all for me, because I too come from a small imprint where I am the only Black author with the imprint, and I feel like I've been treated well, I've been treated fairly, and I'm happy with the path that I chose for myself. But I also know I actively chose this path because publishing has always been so very focused on certain narratives, and I didn't want to write them, and I refuse to write them. You know, I live it every day, so why do I have to regurgitate it onto the paper, you know? So I chose the path that I chose because I wanted to be able to write as the most imaginative, unlimited stories about Black characters, or just anything but the stereotypical white story. I couldn't take it anymore. I've read enough of it. So I'm very fortunate to have that. But I hope that from this moment and this movement, that Black writers, especially Black queer writers, take away from it is that be unlimited with your ideas. Do not feel like you have to write certain stories to get in the door. You're going to get in the door somewhere, and it may not be with that $1 million, you know, deal. I hope it is. I genuinely hope it is. I genuinely hope that you get that $1 million deal, and then everybody starts to get the $1 million deal. But even if you don't, get in there to tell the story that you came to tell, to help the people that you came to help. You'll get there. But do I think publishing is going to change? I don't know. I honestly don't, because while the focus has been on uplifting Black stories and amplifying Black stories, you still see majority of those lists are about amplifying the Black stories where we are traumatized and where we have suffered and where we've had to go through so much. And I feel like, why do we have to keep on making that the #1 priority? So I hope that writers feel like they can write whatever they want to write. If you want to write a goofy rom-com, you better write that goofy rom-com. But if you need to tell the story about your own pain and the things that you've gone through because of being queer, because of being Black, because of being Black and queer, tell those stories. There are still people out there who need to read that to work through their own trauma, to work through their own pain. But don't feel like that's the only story you have to tell. So that's what I hope that we're moving towards, is not saying, oh, and yes, so you're Black? Okay, great. Cannot wait for you to tell about how, you know, this person died, or this person was, you know, beaten up, or, you know, this person experienced something homophobic. Can you make it a little more homophobic? That would really work for our audience right now, because what we're really trying to amplify is how you suffer, because your suffering makes you the hero. That's what people want to cheer for, is that you're limping along trying to, like, what the no, why can't I be the main character without having to get beat in an alley somewhere? I just want to know, like, that's not what
like
I'm
the bare
for.
minimum. That's a pretty low standard. I
had to go low
to be hate
yeah,
crime.
I can only have so much. I mean, yeah, but yeah, it is the bare minimum. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that was me very much whitewashing the Black queer experience.
Yeah.
You have to get drugged by a car down the street. I mean, just like, I just want queer writers to
getting
know.
darker and darker, Julian.
I know. And listen, you don't want to know the places Julian's brain will go. It is not on the page. But yeah, I just hope that is the movement. I hope editors and people higher up in publishing are actually looking and saying, oh, you know, I do need another you should see me to crown. I do need another let's talk about love, or I do need all these other stories that tell anything but us suffering in the street somewhere.
I feel like that is such a strong place for us to stick a pin in this until the next time we all get together and have a kiki. I just want to thank all of you all for your insight and for your honesty and for your generosity. It's an honor to be able to write alongside you and read these books. I think we're out of time. So if we just like go around really quickly, tell us what we need to be buying and where you want us to buy it from, where we can find you on the internet, that would be fantastic. You can go in whatever order you want this time. I'm not going to do the alphabetical order thing.
I'm definitely going to go buy Roya and Candice's book because I think yours are the only ones I don't have. But you should buy all the books from this panel. Absolutely. I have read half of them. And they were lovely. So, and buy from a Black-owned bookstore. I personally like the Lit Bar in New York, Mahogany Books in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm originally from. But there are plenty of lists online to look for one that is close to wherever you live.
Yeah, so seconding Ashley, I think that everybody should definitely buy every book that is written by all of these authors, because yes, it's one the Blackest bookshelves ever. And what am I saying? My book comes out September 22nd. You can pre-order it a lot of places online right now, through like Barnes and Noble. You can go on the Penguin Random House website as well. I'm not gonna say other places that I don't support. Right. But you can also go through like IndieBound, so that you can basically order the book through like a local bookstore near you. But of course, I live in Philly, so a bookstore that I definitely would recommend requesting it from is Harriet's Bookshop, a really awesome bookstore that I've never physically gotten to go to, but is amazing, and that's where I order all my books from. And yeah, September 22nd. Woo woo!
And I just want to say, so my debut, which is the romantic comedy about an asexual Black girl living her best life, it's on sale for $2.99 across all ebook retailers. I'm very aware of why it's on sale. It's Pride Month and America is in shambles. And so I will be donating all of my royalties that I receive for this book to National Bailout. So if you go to my website and submit your receipt, if you buy the ebook, I will send you a swag pack full of cute little character things, free of charge, and it'll give me a tally of how much money I need to donate at the end of the month.
I'm Roya Marsh. I'm available, inaccessible somewhat. That might be a lie. On social media at Champagne Poet. Don't DM me though if you're watching this, because I won't answer. But my book is available at all places that books are sold. I too am a avid fan of the Lit Bar that is in the Bronx, New York, because that's where I'm from all day. There are also IndieBound books, as was mentioned before, and bookshop.org, where it'll actually locate your local bookstore. I implore you to do the research and find out who the Black booksellers are in your neighborhoods. And also, and most importantly for me, you can also request these books at your local library so that my kids can go there and get them for free, because I can't buy no more books for nobody.
At my limit.
I'm not doing it anymore.
I can buy y'all books for me, but I can't buy, and I don't lend. So here we are.
Hilarious.
Why don't schools give free books? That's another conversation. But like, what is this? Teachers having to buy books for their kids?
I mean, I included it in my budget when I was an educator. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna get us to order it for all my kids, and then they're gonna take it home and keep it at the end of the year.
But like, that should not be your job. Like, why are all of our systems so broken?
Burn it down. Once again, everything. Sorry. Okay, let's talk off mic. Okay, Julian, did we do your books? Where are we finding them?
Listen, no, because I'm fascinated by this burn it down, because I'm not saying I didn't like my high school, but if we could start somewhere,
start fresh.
I'll send you I can send everybody an address. Summer of Everything comes out September 8th. But in the meantime, since it's not out, I mean, I'm all for the pre-order. There's a sale going on my publisher's website, store.interludepress.com. You can get the ebook, I think, for like 40% off, and the physical copy for 20% off. But in the meantime, since it's not out, can you please go out and buy all of these wonderful panelist books from Raven Kind Books in Decatur, Georgia. It is a Black-owned bookshop, and I love and adore it so much. If you don't want to, pay sales tax or whatever for Georgia, I feel you. I'm with you. I definitely suggest IndieBound and bookshop.org. I buy a lot of books from those places for people all around. Hey, Running with Lions. Hey. Yeah, you can buy that in the meantime if you want to. I mean, I ain't gonna hate. Yeah, but yeah, please buy all these other panels books because oh my God, they're so freaking good. Candice, I cannot wait for yours.
I know, I'm so excited.
Oh my goodness, the embarrassment of riches, like of Black queer books and collections that we get to point to right now, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. All right, so you can buy You Should See Me in a Crown wherever books are sold. Go to bookshop.org or buy it from the Brain Layer Bookstore, which is Black owned and it's in South Bend, Indiana.
Leah, can we buy it now? Is it available now?
Julian, please.
Yeah, go deliver all those books on your shelf to the bookstore. So
look at that whole
I was like,
shelf.
I had to buy from the publisher.
I was like, I will go full Black queer Santa and hand deliver these books to you all. Like whatever it takes. I was told, Leah, so I didn't. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming.
So cute.
Oh, thank you so much. I personally love this book. And I would love to pay off my student loans at some point. So everybody, please feel free to come this way. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye.
I don't know how to end a virtual panel, so I'm going to do jazz hands until we